What's up guys, I'm Dunmere. I'm a top 100 Overwatch player and now rank 3 Supervive player, and I've been playtesting the game for over a year and a half already, so I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a settings guide just to tell you what are some useful things you should be doing. So, to jump right into it and start off, we're going to start off with the keybinds. There isn't something too crazy here. The biggest thing to note is that for the jump and glide settings, they can be separated. I don't do it just because I don't want to use an extra keybind, but having the jump and glide separated will allow you to have things not happen to you, like if you're standing on top of something and you try to jump and then it breaks below you, automatically forcing you to use your glider, you get spiked in that situation, which is very frustrating. So if you're looking to get an extra keybind used, then go ahead and just use the glide for something else here. That's the biggest thing for this section of the keybinds. But the other thing about it that's important to know is that there isn't actually keybinds separated per character. So whatever keybinds you want to try and use, specifically, for the abilities and all that, you're going to want to try and find some that feel good on the majority of the characters, or at least the one you play the most. So, yeah. Of course, the actual keybinds are something that's up to you. I like to try and bind things to my mouse if I can. So I have one of my mouse buttons as one of my power buttons, and I use that for the powers that are like aimed, so like the grappling hook or like an air blast or something like that, and then I use the other one for ones that aren't aimed, or one that's easier to use, one that I can think about less in fight. So yeah, that's what you're going to do. Of course, these things are a little bit up to you and how you actually want to do it. So moving on to the game settings, we have something that actually is really important. For the movement, they can be a little bit tricky. You have WASD enhance with cursor, WASD fall back to cursor, and then just cursor. So the one that you really want to be using is the first one, which is WASD enhance with cursor. I actually got this setting added to the game about a year ago. And basically what it does is it allows you to have the best of both of these other two. The cursor one will automatically force all of your dashes to go exactly where you're aiming. So it doesn't allow you to do things like, try and aim behind you as you're, you can't like dash backwards as you're shooting forwards. It would automatically force you to go this way, and it's kind of tricky and it'll mess you up. And then the other one, just the fall back to cursor one, means essentially that if you're pressing any sort of input at all, you'll go that way for sure. So it only allows you to move in 8 directions, right? So you go this way, you go this way. Okay, I did the same way because I have the first setting on, but you can only go in 8 cardinal directions or whatever, and so it won't let you do things like try and sneak through a corner like this to go right here, like you can do this way. With the fallback to cursor option, you would only be able to go exactly like that. So that's something that you really want to be having on. Now, the way that this works really quick, I'll explain it just because it's important, is essentially it works like the fallback to cursor normally. So you'll go the direction that you're pressing. So if you're pressing left, you'll dash left, right, you'll dash right. Going at a diagonal to the top right, you'll dash the top right. However, if whatever direction you're pressing, so if I'm pressing upwards, if your mouse is within like 100 degrees, like a 100-degree cone of it, it'll default to it. So it'll automatically go exactly where you want it to go. So even though right now I'm pressing completely up and I'm aiming up here, I'll dash up here instead, right? And so what this lets you do is it lets you kite backwards and shoot forward without it being a problem, or kite the direction you want to go. But if you want to go somewhere like really niche, like I want to go exactly landing on top of this bush, I can do that still. You just have to aim where you want to go, and it'll be very easy. And then if you're aiming away from where you want to go, then you're fine and you'll just be going off the keybinds. So yeah, hopefully that made sense to you guys. From here, going back to the regular settings, we have show all equipment. You're going to want to have that. It'll just give you some more information, and it's not like there's that much bloat of it, so it's not that big of a deal. For high ground opacity and abyss grid opacity, you're going to want those higher. 0.8 is pretty fine. This is going to give you a little bit more of an idea of where you actually are when you're in the abyss, just to tell yourself like how far you are from the neutral level, because this game has 2.5 dimensions, and so where you are like physically, like where you can be damaged, is not where your body looks like it is. It's actually this like little red thing here, and so it's important to have this to like help you give you context on that, and then also let you know like how far you are in the abyss, because as you can see, like you can have the you can watch your body get further away from the grid and just watch yourself further down and down and down. It gives you a lot of context on it. So you should keep that on. Let's see what else there is. The aiming laser is important too. This gives you this little line that I have here that you can kind of see. There's another one that gives you an aiming laser that goes off your actual height, right? And so what this one would do, I'll turn it on for a second to show you, except I do not recommend using it, is when you're in the abyss, you can see there's like one on my like legs looking forward. This will just kind of mess you up because it's not actually like showing you where you'd shoot, right? Because if I want to shoot this thing right here, I need to aim for the top laser. But my bottom laser is like not showing that I'm aiming towards that. It's going to show I'm aiming like to the bottom of it or something. So it'll just confuse you. So don't have that on. Laser opacity, you can mess around with if you want, but 1's pretty good. Height indicators, important to know where people are on top of you relative to you. And then character ground circles, you're definitely going to want that on too, because the circle is really where you want to be aiming instead of their hitbox, because the circle is their hitbox. For privacy, you know, this is up to you. If you feel like you're getting targeted, if you want to be a little bit secret, just put these on. Great. In terms of video settings, of course, you want your frame limits uncapped. You want as many as you can get. But for actual settings, it's really going to depend on your computer. A lot of early games that are in production, they will not be optimized that well for different types of settings, but this game is fine. So if you want to maximize your settings and maximize your frames, just drop everything to low. That's what I do. If you want things to look a little bit better, you know, you can bump up the texture maybe, or the effects quality, perhaps. Those might get you a little bit of a prettier game, and you can play with it, but they're also going to cost you more frames. So that's up to you. Lumen enabled on, image sharpening. It doesn't really change that much. I have mine to strong. You can mess around with it and see if it's something that like bothers you or not. There isn't much really to deal with in audio here, except you're going to want to keep the flavor, combat, and abilities on. The flavor is kind of funny because you'll get to hear the characters' voices and they're not really like finished yet, I think, and some of them are kind of funky. So yeah, but the combat abilities will give you some information that's useful, and then the abilities will give you information. They'll just give you a little bit of information about like sounds of like, you know, like when my character Bishop is ulting, she kind of yells, and these will help you hear that, and so it'll give you information about whether you're getting attacked or not. There isn't anything in this section, so go ahead and skip that. This is just your camera, your output, input, microphone, headset, or whatever. This is where things get more important. This is the next one that's like really important to mess with, which is your camera. So there's a couple different primary settings. You have locked camera, where it's just locked right on top of you. You really don't want to use this, or else you can't take advantage of having like extra vision around you, just like mid gameplay. Like I can just kind of feather it a little bit to look around. And then standard dynamic does not, this standard dynamic is just like not as good as fully dynamic. Fully dynamic does not give you enough control. So for fully dynamic, these are the settings that I have. I have my dead zone at 0.6, max zone at 0.9, pan distance 100%. Your dead zone is how far you can move your mouse without the camera moving. This is important to have kind of bigger. So this is like 60% across from the middle to the side. That's what that means. As you can see, it gets like 60%, it starts moving. This will make it so you won't have to worry about your camera like moving a lot while you're aiming at something close, right? Because if you have the dead zone like at this, my camera's moving like as I'm aiming at something close. So it's like where I'm trying to aim at something right here, it starts to move faster. So it's not like 1-to-1, and so it'll mess with your aim. And so you don't want to have that, right? The max zone is how far until it'll reach its peak distance, right? And so I have mine at 0.9. You don't want it at 1, because then you have to like actually slam your mouse against the wall to be able to move it. And so you're constantly having movement. But essentially what this lets you do, to have it around 0.9, maybe you could drop it down to like 0.85. I'm playing around with that. Is it lets you have one thing where nothing's moving and you can just aim at things that are close to you. And then one where things are far. I'll show you with the camera off. Like I said, one where you can move and aim close and nothing's moving. It's exactly where you want to go. They're here. You got to, you know, you can do yourself a little box like this, right? Whatever. And then you have a certain point where it starts moving and then where it stops, right? And so you have two places where the movement is completely how you should feel it to be. And then there's just a little range in between that you can kind of feather it. Enough that it doesn't like jump in between them really well, but enough that you only have like a slight distance where you need to kind of think about like your aim having to like adapt for the fact that the camera is moving more than it should be. So that's the settings I'd recommend for that. Really important. You should give it a try. For the camera speed, I have locked to cursor, so it doesn't technically affect things, but you can change it if you're getting too much, you're getting a little bit too dizzy or whatever when you're playing. I like as much control as possible, and I like it to go like exactly where I want it to go, like as I'm doing it type of thing. But if it's too much for you, you can lower it down. It's not a huge disadvantage or something. Glide zoom out, you definitely want that on. That'll make it so, you know, your camera zooms out a little bit when you're gliding, where normally you'd have to like hold control to get extra vision and slow yourself as a cost. With this, you just get a little bit of extra stuff for free. So that's extremely useful. And yep, the rest is just camera, like your dead camera settings, so they aren't important. Whatever, move on with that. Like I said, stabilization, you can try it, but it just gives you less control, and it lets you like, it like slows down and it buffers what's going on as you're using it. All right, so getting to the UI, the things you're going to want to kind of look at right here is your cursor scale. I like having mine at 0.55. Having it at 0.55 will make it so your cursor isn't too big, but it's big enough that you're not losing it in a fight. This game is very hectic, so it's important to know where it is. But you don't want it to be blocking things too. So 0.5 is going to get you that. Like, you know, any smaller and it's like a tiny little twig. Like it's just not. It's getting too small, and then above that you're getting too big. So 0.55, right? Color's up to you. Hardware cursor will give you a. It essentially makes it so your mouse is like directly controlling your hardware or your cursor on the game. It's useful. I think it allows it to follow your actual like specs of your mouse. Not entirely sure. It's definitely good to use though. Hit confirm effect, also useful. Put that on. Really tooltips in combat. Don't think this one is a super big deal. You can try it, but it might just reduce a little bit of the visual clutter that's going on in the game. So I'd say recommend putting it on. For the map, this is up to your opinion also. What this will do is this will auto zoom your map onto like what's remaining in the map in terms of how far the zone is closed in. And so it'll consistently do that, but sometimes it makes it too small, and so it can be a little bit comfortable and you have to like mess with it. But it also doesn't mean that you have like to like re-find your map, which if you have it off, then you have save map zoom on, you'd have to do. Like if you were zoomed off into the top left of the corner, you'd have to like drag it over and like scroll it out and like all this kind of nonsense. So auto zoom, save map zoom, probably best for the average person. So hide chat window, don't need that on. HUD margins, you can see that if you really want to, you can kind of like push it out a little bit. It can be useful actually, just because it lets you kind of like fight at the bottom of the map. So I kind of do recommend like pulling it out a little bit. This makes it so like if you're fighting downwards, you're not like clicking on your own stuff and having like the tooltips show up and stuff like that. And you're also able to like not have to look too far from the middle. It does look a little bit jank, but it's kind of honestly better, especially when you're fighting downwards. It just makes it so you don't have to like worry about like the stuff actually blocking the people that you're fighting, or you like accidentally clicking on your items or dragging off one of your powers and stuff like that. So that one's useful. Granted, it's something that you kind of want to like play with and see what you're comfortable with. The rest of the HUD scale you can also change to. The only thing I recommend really changing is reducing the size of the minimap. The minimap's pretty massive otherwise, but with this you can drop it down to where is it? I can't find it. Here it is. You can drop it down to 0.75. It makes it just a little bit smaller, so not a super big deal. And you should be able to mess with each individual one with this use individual HUD scale per corner. So that's really useful, and it lets you customize things how you want. So the actual design of your HUD is going to be up to you. Only you can mess with. This is pretty standard. You know, it's not going to be the biggest deal to you, but you get to have a little bit of fun with it. For the rest of this, nothing crazy here, nothing super important. Just lets you see like your FPS, etc. If you want to, you can have it on. It looks kind of weird and it's kind of, you know, in the way a little bit, but it can be useful, of course.